Christopher Spera, and this is the iTechGear Weekly, episode number 118. We're okay because the band's still playing. Recorded live, Sunday, January 19th, 2025, live from iTechGear Central. As I said, I'm Christopher Spera, the editor-in-chief over here at the iTechGear.org. And joining us today, I mean, it's a little bit weird. Wouldn't you say it's a little bit weird?
I would say it's a little weird.
It's a little strange, right? Because all we have left, effectively, are the dulcet tones. This is it. Mr. Chris Gavula, the former contributing editor over at Gear Diary and Pocket now, and of course, editor here at iTechGear.org. This is, and we normally wouldn't
for tonight.
It's nice. It's nice, but we normally wouldn't do this, right? I mean, I always want, at least three folks on the show and doing all this simply because we like the differencing of opinions, and we like the conversation. It's just tech jabbering.
Yeah,
right.
Pretty much.
It's not something that we normally do, right? Except that you and I have been doing for decades. I mean,
we have been doing this for decades.
Yeah, it's all kind of sort of what we've been,
So this is why we're doing this again tonight, even though there's only two of us, because we've been doing this forever and ever.
We've been, honest to God. I mean, it really was the premise behind the start of the whole show. To tell you the truth, iTechGear or the iTechGear Weekly. I've been saying that we should be doing a tech podcast for years.
You have, nagging, begging, whatever the word is for it.
Something
but yes,
like
you've been saying that for a long time.
Just irritatedly, you just said, fine.
Just leave me alone.
Shut up and leave me alone. Right?
I said, hey, you kids, get off my lawn. And then
I went, exactly. This is it.
We found our format.
Yes. Or grumpy old guys kvetching about tech. But anyway, which it's really been an interesting kind of go thus far, and we've been doing it for 4 years. And the iTechGear.org's anniversary, right? Anniversary. Do you know the site's been around for 15 years? The site's been around for 15 years. Yes.
Oh my goodness.
January 10th, 2010 was really the official start of iTechGear.org. That's when I really converted it to a WordPress site. It had actually been around for a little bit longer than that, but as a just kind of like an email sort of and go.
Oh, gotcha.
Kind of thing, right? Subject of the email becomes.
I remember. It's been so long. It's been so long. It's hard to say that, but yes, I remember.
Yes, it's been long and painful. I know. So,
I should say, Brother Joel and Dr. Mr. Larry McJunkin.
No. Dr. Mr. Larry.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're the one that does it best, of course. But they will both be returning. They've taken breaks this week for a variety of reasons there.
Yeah, and
this is not a regular thing.
Right. Brother Joel's son has got a huge bowling tournament, and he's doing all that kind of stuff. And then Dr. Mr. Larry McJunkin just got off the whole moving thing.
I'm sorry. I'm going to be chuckling about that all night.
Yeah. He and Dr. Mrs. McJunkin, are on a brief vacation, and it's nice because after all the hard work that they did getting themselves into the brand new house, I know that they had to have needed it.
We talk about how much work that is. It's work when you're very young. As we get older, this stuff gets harder to do.
It's horrible.
It just gets more and more challenging, and we don't want to say, oh, we're old guys, we're complaining about it, but it really is actually harder as you get older to make these kinds of moves.
It is.
It's a lot more stressful. Yeah.
Well, not only just stressful,
and harder physically. Harder physically to do.
Physically harder to do because you've got all that stuff. And from what I understand, they kind of moved through the whole thing pretty quick. I mean,
they did it. They really did. So
week and a half.
Well-deserved break, guys. Well-deserved break.
Absolutely.
You've earned it.
Absolutely. So we're going to go ahead and just, run through it all. We've got most of the major stuff that we usually do, but it'll be exactly the same, except that it'll be completely different. So there you go.
Well, that's perfectly normal to me.
Yes, that's all of us. All right. But here we go. All right. So good evening, Mr. and Mrs. North and South America and all the ships at sea. Let's go to press. Flash. TikTok band comes back to life. I did that better the second time around, don't you think?
You know, I think you did. I really
really,
do.
honestly,
I'm more impressed this time. It's less clumsy. It was very good.
I know.
Very good.
Yeah, it's the whole Walter.
And again,
I studied it
I
all
said
week,
before,
you know.
you have been practicing as long as I can think to
I
wait for that to
did.
happen.
I did, you know.
But here's TikTok. So we probably should explain to folks
A
what
little
led us
bit.
up to here. A little bit what
Yes.
led us up to here.
A little
So
bit
as we
what
know,
got us, yes.
TikTok is owned by ByteDance.
They are.
ByteDance has connections to the Chinese government, and there was concerns. And there's concerns among our government, and has been for several years now, that how that was being leveraged or how that was being influenced or any of a number of other things. There was concern.
Yes.
So legislation.
In fact, I believe it was number 45. Right.
So number 45 started the process.
Number 45 said that, you know, originally that he had issues and concerns, and he called it a threat to national security.
And 46 agreed with him, basically, and they kept
him. So 46 went ahead and he laid down the law. You know,
and so legislation was passed in Congress that basically said that ByteDance had to sell it or else they couldn't work, or they wouldn't
be able to operate the app inside.
And so
not only the lower 48, but Alaska, Hawaii, so all 50 states plus all U.S. recognized territories, which Guam, U.S. Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, everywhere. Right.
So the end result was the last week. It was questionable whether this would carry through. This was going through the courts.
That's it.
And last week, the Supreme Court basically said, we're upholding this thing.
They did. Surprisingly, they did.
Yeah, we weren't sure what they were going to do.
It was a unanimous vote, too.
Yeah,
all 9, which to be very, very
unusual.
Honest, well, first of all, generally speaking, you don't get all 9 normally.
No, you don't.
All right. And number 2, there is, I don't want to call it a schism. All right, but there is, I would say, a firm line, a very well-defined line in the sand, if you will.
Yeah.
You know, between the Reds and the Blues. Right?
Yeah, there you go.
All right. I do really, really think so. And it's normally you're going to get about 6-3, right?
And it's more obvious now than it's been in a long time. So it's interesting.
Agreed.
So when you put all that in play, it's interesting that all 9 went this way.
Yes, they did.
That's very interesting.
Right. And
but what's interesting is almost immediately after that happened, both sides of the red and blue divide all of a sudden seem to have buyer's remorse on the whole thing.
Hands off, totally hands off. None of them want. And I remember seeing. So I've got my iPhone on a powered stand right by my bed, and I use it for standby during the night as like an alarm clock, right?
Sure.
All right. So I've got a clock on one side, and I've got on the other side I've got the Apple News sort of thing.
Oh, gotcha.
And it's usually, so you get up, you know, you wake up in the middle of the night to go and do the thing, right?
Yeah, of course.
Because we're older, and
we do that,
and it happens, right? And so you catch a headline or two. All right. And this would actually happen to stay on. It was on all night long. It was on before I went to bed, and it was on when I woke up this morning. It was, you know, both sides are completely hands off and not wanting to take credit.
Which I found fascinating, since both sides were supporting it in the first place.
Right.
But so that was kind of interesting, kind of a weird quirk of politics, folks. Here we are.
It is, and neither of them, you know, both sides were distancing themselves from this, and it was really very, very interesting.
So 46 basically said, okay,
he laid down the law,
but he said just after the court's ruling, he said, okay, well, you know, maybe this isn't such a good thing. We're not going to enforce it, is what he said. He said, we're not going to enforce it.
We're not going to enforce it. And we'll make certain that the next administration, which is going to have to deal with the longer effects
and decide what to do. Right.
Decide what to do. Which
I
thought was a very good decision to make.
It was a reasonable thing to do. It was, we're not here to argue whether or not the ban was a good thing. We're not here to do that. No. We're just going to sort of reporting on what happened.
Kind of, sort of.
And the short form is he said that. Then TikTok basically posted a note saying
last night.
Oh, thank you. Sorry, I jumped ahead a little bit.
Last night at about 10 o'clock Eastern.
Yeah.
On the 18th. All right. TikTok users that got into the app at or after that point.
And let's point out that you've been in this app the last few weeks because you
Oh,
wanted to see what was
because
happening.
I am not I don't like either the ticks or the talks. All right.
You're
I,
non-discriminatory. You don't like either ticks or
I don't
talks.
like
Okay, good
either.
for you.
Yeah, thank you.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
But I wanted to jump on and get into the app just specifically for this reason. I wanted to know and see for myself what was going to happen
Yeah.
when this deadline would pass. And it actually happened last night at about 9 o'clock Central. I'm in the Central time zone. Users who started the app after 9 o'clock Central, 10 o'clock Eastern, got a message from the app that said, sorry, TikTok isn't available right now. And they had a wonderful little note that went along with it. It's just, like I said, sorry, TikTok isn't available right now. A law banning TikTok, which is not truly the case, but we'll get into that in a minute. A
Yeah.
law banning TikTok has been enacted in the U.S. Unfortunately, that means you can't use TikTok for now. We are fortunate that President Trump, and I'm not kidding, this is exactly what this thing says.
Yeah.
We are fortunate that President Trump has indicated that he will work with us on a solution to reinstate TikTok once he takes office. Please stay tuned. And then you have a learn more button and a close app button. All right. And it didn't matter what you did last night. That's all that you got. All right.
Yeah.
And then this morning or today, people were who tried to start the app to see, okay, well, it is now the 19th, and this is when this ban was supposed to be put into effect. All right. Really went to see, well, okay, is it really banned or not? Even if they got this stuff from last night, is it truly still banned or not? And those that tried this morning or today were then opened the app and then were greeted with a message, a system message from TikTok that effectively said you're not connected to the internet. All right. And my wife who likes TikTok opened it this morning while we were just sort of getting our day started, and she shoved her phone in my face and said, "What is this? What is this? I don't understand this. You're no longer connected to the internet." I said, "Well, I don't know. Exit out and restart. You should get the same message that we got last night." She closed it and opened it again, and all of a sudden, it started working. It started working, and it went on like it wasn't banned or nothing ever stopped.
We should mention that in between then and the evening one, the incoming 47 said
yes.
he was going to try to find a way to undo or at least delay the ban. He was going to try to do something. He wasn't sure what he was going to do, but he wanted to do something.
Right.
So both parties have already said this, which is interesting that TikTok is basically sucking up to one side, but they kind of have to. This is the incoming folks.
Right.
So I guess I kind of get it, but
like I said, it started. All right. The app started, and
now it started.
You were able to scroll like it never stopped. All right.
Yeah.
Although I was greeted with a number of different, when TikTok is banned, you'll not be able to do this. And when TikTok is banned, you'll not be able to do that. And oh my God, get as much TikTok in as you can now because it's going to be banned. All right. So you scrolled through all of those things, and you did whatever it is that you were going to do. And I closed the application, and then later on this afternoon, while my wife and I were at lunch, I opened TikTok again. After we had finished and after, we had paid the bill, and we were, just sort of relaxing there at the table, just, whatever. I started TikTok again and greeted with a brand new message that says, "Welcome back." All right. "Thanks for your patience and support. As a result of President Trump's efforts." Really? His efforts?
He's done nothing. Nobody's done anything.
He must have moved the earth and skies between 10 p.m. last night Eastern and 2 p.m. Or 3 p.m. Eastern this afternoon. Must have been a huge effort. Right? TikTok is back in the US. We can continue to create, share, and discover all the things you love on TikTok. And you've got just a continue button. All right.
Uh-huh.
Which I thought was very, very interesting because God knows if there is a time, except for when there's some sort of a budget crisis, and they've got to meet in order to make certain that the government can still continue to function. Ain't nothing going to happen on a weekend.
And it didn't.
And
That's
it
the
didn't.
reality.
All right. I don't understand what all of this is about.
Yeah.
All right.
It's clearly a political move on their part. And I get it. I get why they're doing it.
I don't understand.
But folks, don't be fooled by it. It's just
I don't understand how or
game.
why. I don't understand how or why this particular event took place as it did with the system messages.
Nah, me neither.
From the application. And I also, and like you said earlier, I also still don't understand why they're sucking up to 47 so bad.
Well, I mean, what I don't understand is
ByteDance, your TikTok emblem, your logo has a little bit of brown,
brown on it. Because and what bothers me about the whole affair is that, again, initially this really was a bipartisan thing. Everybody was thinking we had to do this, and then when everybody started to when the courts made their decisions and upheld all of this, then all of a sudden everybody got buyer's remorse. Again, both sides of the political divide said that here in this country, said, "Oh, we shouldn't do this," and yet TikTok or ByteDance has chosen to deliberately politicize this to an extent, and that's disturbing. That bothers me, and I don't understand the why of it. That's all.
I don't understand the why. All right, I don't understand the why.
Other than the fact that this is the incoming president, and maybe they're just trying to suck up to the incoming guy.
Right. Now,
I don't know.
My wife was like, "Well, it must have sold. It must have sold. It must have sold." And I'm like,
"No, it definitely didn't.
You would have heard a heck of a lot more on who bought it and why."
A deal like that takes a while to get done too. A deal like that takes a bit of motion to get done. We would have heard rumblings before.
We would have heard a lot more before.
So here we are.
So right, and she's like, well, Zuckerbuck has got to Zuckerbuck. I loved it, but she says Zuckerbuck has got to have purchased it, because the UI looks the same and it's all as Facebook Reels and there was talk. I heard a lot of talking. Yes, there was talk last week.
Yeah, there was
the end of the week that Zuck was going to go ahead and buy it,
but I don't think he could have, because I don't think he's on the list of U.S. buyers.
There's a short list of quote unquote approved U.S. buyers, and they didn't have to be a U.S. buyer. It could have just been
it could have been anybody.
Could have been anybody else, right? They just didn't want the Chinese government having the look into all the demographic data that apparently the app has, and where it was sending all of the data. Blah 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 blah.
So the other side of this is very interesting. So a lot of TikTok users fled platforms, is what they did.
And from what I understand, they probably still are.
But the reaction of the Chinese government to that is interesting.
Yes. So there are a couple of different substitutes, TikTok substitutes or lookalikes out there. One of them is
Red Note.
One of them is what I would consider to be something a little bit more than TikTok in terms of the government's influence, because I'd say
that's true.
This is the one that I understand, and I had heard that most of the Chinese people themselves are using, and the application is called Red Note.
And let me add that the reason it was one of the ones that people went to is because they were trying to show their displeasure at TikTok being done. So they went to the most government-centric one that they could. They deliberately did that.
And that is Red Note. And now, from what I understand, this is a bit of a problem for the Chinese government, simply because they want to wall off U.S. users.
Now they're worried about us.
From Chinese users, because they don't want the reverse influence to come on to those folks.
Oh gosh, this just gets crazier.
And
this roller coaster.
I think that they deserve all of the, all
I'm
of
sorry. The
TikTok shop
17-year-olds doing
ads.
bad dances, they could get that. They're welcome to have them all. Thank
Well,
you.
that and the fact that I want them to see all of not just the bad dances, but I want them to see all of the bad insurance ads,
Oh my goodness.
all the car insurance ads that you stop paying hundreds of dollars and just
I don't know
pay
if they get
$56
those though.
and 70. Well, they would if they were on Red Note, because right now
Ah,
there's it's platform is open. They want to go
okay.
ahead and put in a, forgive me for saying it, Chinese wall
Yeah, well,
between the
that's the
users
conversation,
to
right? I
prevent
mean,
them, right,
they
to
want to
prevent
wall those
the
people
reverse
off.
influence, right?
So they're talking
So
about putting the American users on or non-domestic users on
right,
another server and getting them off of
right, right.
so they're
So
not sharing. Yeah.
they're not sharing all these different ideas. Besides, they don't want our car insurance ads. They really, really don't.
Yeah.
All right. And to be very, very honest, a lot of the stuff that is in TikTok Shop and all of those other goofy things really are coming from China anyway. We love their ramen bowls.
Well, there is
All
that.
right. We love their ramen bowls, and we love all of the ramen derived ramen ingredients that you can go ahead and put in with the
I thought those were Japanese, not Chinese, but that's the same
whatever.
thing.
But the point that I'm making is, all right, a
But
lot of
they are
those things
good.
are actually made in China. I heard one person saying that they were just going to go ahead and take their Chinese manufactured phone and sit in their on their Chinese manufactured couch and sit there in their Chinese manufactured clothing and scroll through all of the Chinese
Ugh,
manufactured posts and have everybody else just get over it. So
it's a thing.
interesting. So interesting with what is going on. This is an ongoing story, and this is
And we're
something
gonna
that's going to
keep we're
take.
gonna keep watching it,
We're going to
guys.
yak about this for at least two or
Oh
three more
yeah,
shows, at least.
at least we have to. It's because
Well,
this
it's going to
this
be an ongoing thing.
it back in the day we had the daily soap operas.
We
Now
did.
we have this.
Unless of course you speak Spanish and you get on the novelas.
Get on the telenovela. Yeah,
Yeah.
well, I have to say I do like those. So that's just that's me. Um,
Yeah, and if you have those translating earphones that you can also buy in the TikTok shop, you should be able to go ahead and follow
well,
them.
I
Not have
like
to worry
my
about the subtitles.
I like my daily over the top dramas. So
Yes,
there you
which
go. So,
you
and
would.
this is
You
turning out to be
would.
just that, guys. This
Oh,
is
it
turning out
is.
to be that for us. So
So
enjoy.
I got a great idea though. So why don't we go ahead and get off the TikToks for just a little bit?
Let's get off the
All right,
TikToks.
and move on to something that's a little bit more
Okay.
normal. We've been talking about
Hmm.
uh, the Apple Mail app in all of our. I mean, the four of us usually
We have.
email back and forth between the four of us, probably a gajillion times a day at least. And one of
Yeah,
the things that I
quite a
know
bit.
Dr. Mr. Larry McJunkin really, really is a fan of. And not because he's an Apple fanboy, because he's really not, but he is a fanboy about the Apple Mail app. All right.
He
He
is.
really likes the app.
And I have to agree with them. I like it quite a bit myself. It's a very clean, simple, very speedy, effective app. It really is. It
Mhm.
reminds me a lot of what the Microsoft Mail and the old Mail app and Microsoft going back.
Outlook Express.
No. Well, yes, Outlook Express, but even prior to Outlook Express, Outlook Express is what it became. I don't remember. Anyway, the point is,
Oh my
I
goodness.
like
You're
these.
going
I
back to
like
like
these. Yeah,
1996.
But I like those
96.
simple, clean, just get it done, basic, email apps. I
Mhm.
think these email apps, all of them, have
Right.
gotten so bloated and out of
A lot
control,
on the
and
desktop side, yes. And this is why
it
this
is.
particular story is of notice, because apparently Apple Mail, the Apple Mail that you see on either iOS or iPad OS, is coming to Mac OS. All
Yeah,
right.
and I like that. I
At least
like that.
according to 9 to 5 Mac. So um that is an interesting kind of
And
thing.
we say this in an era where we're being forced off of Microsoft's Mail and onto Microsoft Outlook. We're being forced onto that on the
You're
Windows
being
platform.
forced out of the old Windows mail and calendar apps,
Yeah,
and everyone is now, and actually, from what I understand, that's already taken place.
it has.
That's
No, it
gone,
has.
right? That was on
So it's
January 1st that hit us because
so
the
it's
apps.
refreshing to see another lighter client coming back. You
Yes,
know.
it is. All right, but that was supposed to have been implemented on January 1st, right?
Oh, it
Um,
was. It was, I
so
believe,
so
or soon after.
Mark Gurman, who has deep ties into the
He
Apple
does.
organization, um, says that it will actually become part of Mac OS with Mac OS 15.4. All right.
Hmm.
This particular app was introduced on the iPhone in iOS 18.2, but hasn't made its way, well, and also iPad OS, but it hasn't made
Yeah.
its way to any other platform. All right. Now, in a follow-up tweet, because this actually came in a tweet on uh, Elon Musk's X. In a follow-up tweet, Gurman has said that the redesigned Mail app will also be making its way to the iPad at about the same time. So interesting that it was only on. I was mistaken.
No,
It was only
it's actually
on.
already available on the iPad. That's what he was saying. It's already available on the iPad. So
Already
this is going to be
available.
like the iPad app, which is great.
Yeah,
I like the iPad app quite a bit. So
I'm not a real big fan because I actually happen to like the folder list on the extreme left, and then a list of what's in that particular folder in the middle. And then if you had decided on seeing exactly what was in the mail, you could tap or click on that particular object in the inbox, and then it would display
well,
on
you
the
don't get
extreme
that so
right.
much on the iPhone, but you do get that more on the iPad. So
You do, but I
you're
like
going
the
to have it
folder
again.
list. I
But
like the
you're
folder
going to
list.
have something like that again.
So
So
this will be
but
a lot like even the Gmail app, which doesn't have that conversation or at least um, conversation list on the extreme right, like the new Mail app does, with a list of individual pieces of mail on the left. So it'll
in
be
any case, it's nice to see
right,
this to me. This is just the larger iOSing of Mac OS. We're seeing a
right,
lot more kind of iOS things popping up in Mac OS and
right,
being much more commonality between the platforms. So
right,
we've talked about that before, but
right.
this is just another step along that path as far as I can tell.
True it is. And according to Gurman, there's still stuff that's still slated to happen with this particular application. Um,
Ugh,
he had been saying that even this is going to change, all right, with the upcoming release of Mac OS 15.4, all right, and it will likely come into beta in the coming
yeah.
weeks and with a debut in April. And he says that there's another more under the radar feature coming in April as well. The Mac will get the upgraded Mail app that uses AI to prioritize messages
Uh,
and sort content into different
which
inboxes. Right now, iPad and iPhone users are able to tap into this feature, which is terrific, by the way. Um, at least that's the side comment from him. But Mac customers have been left behind. That changes with Mac OS 15.4, I'm told. For those not familiar with the feature, it sorts mail into a primary category as well as ones for transcriptions, promotions, updates, and all mail. So
so
for those that have
yeah,
been using Gmail, all right, it'll be something like that. You'll get that kind
yeah.
of
And
sorting.
we talked
So,
about that in our iOS apps, and that Larry and I both agreed that neither of us was crazy about the way it's sorted,
right,
how it categorized. So we both have turned that feature off. Um,
right.
as another side note, let me add that this last week or so, um, Apple rolled back the AI summarizations in news
Mm-hmm.
because of mistakes that were being made on a regular basis. So they rolled back that, but they left those features in other apps like Mail. They
Right,
left those AI features. So if you hear those stories, it really only applies to news that they rolled back the AI
right.
features.
Uh,
Um,
Well, even still, that's
and they're coming
interesting.
back.
Well, of course they are. And even still, that's interesting. There are times I don't like, and I didn't like the change into these different kinds of inboxes in
Yeah.
Gmail. I wasn't all that crazy about them, but that happened probably that was 2011, 2012 when that rolled out there. And those that have used Gmail at all since then have seen that kind of thing. And it's okay. It's three different inboxes,
Yeah.
that you've got to manage. And they do an okay job of
Yeah.
um weeding things out,
I
like advertisements or what are the three categories that they've got there in Gmail? It's they've got primary, promotions, and social. So, and they do an okay
okay.
they do an okay job in
I'm
Gmail.
not a
It's not
Gmail user, so I couldn't speak
it's
to it,
not
but
it's not all that great because there are some times, when you get things that are supposed to be, say, in your promotions tab
yeah.
is all advertisements or all newsletters or all things that um really that wouldn't be something that's super important that you would want to see in your primary inbox, right? And then on the social tab should be all of those notifications that you get from Facebook, TikTok, or any other social media app, right? They should all go there. And it doesn't do that, all right? Because there are still things that hit the primary or promotions inboxes that really should be in. And the idea is, well, you're supposed to go ahead and say, no, this one shouldn't be in the promotions. It should really be a primary because the last time I looked, Chris Gavula wasn't trying to sell me anything. So let's move that note from promotions over
Promotions.
into primary. And you're supposed to
Sure.
curate a little bit or help it curate. So you move things back and forth in between the two or
And
three
there we go.
inboxes. And there you go, right?
But I find apps like Gmail to be a little too bloated. Outlook, I use Outlook for work, but Outlook is also a bit bloated.
Outlook is
Um,
hugely bloated,
you
but
know, but
you
it's
know,
trying to
it,
meet other needs as well, folks. We
it
have to
is.
make it
It
clear.
is. It's trying to be your mail handler, your calendar
Yeah.
handler, your contacts handler, but that's left over from the old Windows Mobile days when it was,
Yeah.
just PDA stuff, right? Personal digital assistant, and you had your mail, your calendar, your
Well, it was
invitations,
for
your
corporate
calendar, and
people,
your
right? This is what
tasks.
we all needed this stuff. We needed
Right.
all this tied together.
Yeah.
And it made a lot of sense at that point. And it still
It
makes
still
sense for
does.
corporate
It
users,
still does for corporate
especially for
users.
corporate users. Yeah.
Yeah.
But for individual users, they always had separate apps and it felt a little bloated to use that as a personal email. And
Right.
to me, Gmail feels very similar now. It feels very
Right.
bloated to me. So I like these light and friendly ones. I hope we see more of it, but we'll see how it goes.
Between you and me, I I'm not a huge fan of
Yeah.
all of this. I'm really not. Um, I I I I don't like um the mobile. I'm not a huge fan of mobile interfaces. I mean, you want to color this as a get off my lawn moment for me. I'm okay with that. Um, but it's not something
Well,
that I'm 100% um totally in line with, you know?
I would suggest when it comes out,
Hmm.
when it does come out, you take a good look at it because, again, your three-column approach is what I
Hmm.
see on the iPad
I
today.
understand. I
So,
understand. And
so some of your
that's
objections
exactly
might
what
not
they're
be
trying to
some
it's
of your
exactly
objections might not be as
yeah.
bad as you think they are.
Well, I
Because
I
you're talking about the iPhone interface, not the iPad interface necessarily, because you're not a
I
fan.
don't
So,
like I wasn't all that crazy of it on the iPad either on those times when I tried to use it in years past.
yeah,
Um
it's different. It's a little
but
different
it's
now.
different now. I
I'm
understand
just
it's
going to
different.
recommend you try it once again and see what you think
Well,
when
yeah,
it
I'm
comes
very
out.
curmudgeon-y and I'm very much a stick in the mud,
I
you
know.
know.
I
You
know you
know,
are.
but what are you
And you
gonna
have been since you were a young man. So this
This
is
is
not a
true.
new thing.
This is true. All right. But what are you
Okay.
gonna do? What are
Well,
you
there
gonna
you
do?
go. There you're
I
going
don't.
to go.
Yeah. So all I know is it's something that is
It,
coming.
it,
If you're excited about it, well, there you go. It's coming. All right. They're gonna standardize the mail interface across all platforms at this
yeah.
point. Looks like, which I think is a good thing, especially if you're firmly stuck. were stuck or implanted in the Apple ecosystem. If
Yeah.
it's your ecosystem of choice, if you're an iPhone user, an iPad user, and a Mac user, then you should be all over this
Yeah,
because
this will be a good thing for you. Yeah,
the
I
app is going
agree.
to be the same from device to device to device, OS to OS, and it's going to get everybody on the
Yeah.
same page. And that is always a very consistency is always a very
It
good thing.
is. It is.
You know, I'm not, but you have to play within the paradigm and like or
Yeah.
get used to the paradigm
Yeah,
for it to
one
be
way or another.
productive.
And if you
Yeah,
don't, then you don't. It's that simple.
true.
But there's plenty of alternatives out there, folks. You're not
There
being
are.
blocked from using any of them.
There are. There
So,
are. And speaking of iPhones and whatnot,
yeah,
the iPhone SE is an interesting device. I
it
mean,
is.
it's meant to be a lower cost, sort of budget based phone. All right.
Yeah.
And this joins the regular iPhones series, and not the Pro series, but the regular iPhone series. And for this time around, it's the iPhone 16 um, and the iPhone 16 Plus. The SE is a member of that lower cost group of devices,
Yeah. And
right?
keep in mind, I think
It
it's a
also
rebadged iPhone 8,
it,
isn't it?
well, it's a rebadged iPhone S series, right? Um,
Yeah.
if you remember or I'm not S, but C series. If you remember the iPhone C series back a while back,
Well, it was
right?
originally that, but
Yeah.
I think it became the 8. The 8 became the SE.
It's sort of yes and sort of
Something
no.
like that.
Yeah, yes,
The
but the idea
SE3, sorry.
behind
The SE3 is the what was the
is
8, I
it was
think.
the eight, right? All right,
Gotcha. Okay.
but the whole point
Yeah.
around
But
this
you're
was
right.
that it's a little bit more affordable. It's a little bit
Yeah.
smaller, right?
Spiritually, it's the successor to the C. Yeah, you're
Yes.
right. You're absolutely right.
All right. And according to 9 to 5 Mac, which is where we um,
Yeah, this is where we pulled this from.
kind of pulled this from, there's little to no SE inventory remaining in Apple's stores.
And let's keep in mind, folks, this is happening at the same time as the rumor mill about what an SE4 might look like
Right,
have been growing and growing and growing. We're hearing more and more rumors about that.
right, right.
So timing on this is
Interest.
pretty obvious or interesting at the least, and what's probably happening here.
Right, right.
So,
So to again to sort of sum up because we can't. There's too much to recap, right? So
hmm
all right. It's been mostly dead all day. But the iPhone SE 4 is supposed to sort of raise its head sometime in the April-ish.
Aprilish.
Um,
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing.
somewhere like at the beginning of Q2, right? Um, and it may actually be called, according to 9 to 5 Mac, the iPhone 16e instead of
Yeah,
the SE. All right.
yeah,
Um, and it's apparently supposed to be a huge redesign from what the
yeah.
SE has traditionally been. All right. 6.1 OLED display, an upgrade to Face ID, USB-C, etc. Um, It'll gain support for Apple Intelligence. It'll bring features like Genmoji and notification summaries to the entire
hmm
iPhone lineup. Um, and apparently, with all of these improvements, it's going to cost just a little bit more.
Yeah.
I thought it was like $399,
It,
right?
I think it had been 399.
It
The
had been
SE3, I think
399.
was.
Right. And so they're saying that because of all these upgrades, it's going to be higher price. It's going to be at least 499, which is firmly in the mid-range,
Yeah.
mid-tier, if you will. Um, so if that's the case, though, Apple, they keep things, right? They don't once they introduce the new latest greatest, they don't necessarily completely kill off the older model. They
True.
reduce it by $100, right? And then sell it and give you the option to buy the older model technology as well, right? So interesting though that it's now harder to get.
For
So
now. Yeah, the 3
for
is
now.
harder to get because it maybe they're petering them out so that they can get
Yeah,
ready to release the 4 in April.
right,
That's what it's kind of looking like, but I guess we'll see.
right, right. We'll see, and I'm not necessarily certain of how all that's going to work.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
but
Okay.
we'll see how that goes. Um, if this is the phone for you and this is the way that you want to get into it's a great way to get into the Apple ecosystem, isn't it?
Well, and there's been some larger articles talking about people maybe getting off the mega size phones and starting to downsize again. So if
Yeah,
they put enough features in this thing, this may be
yeah.
a really good idea for a lot of people. It's hard to say,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Mm-hmm.
So upscaling it slightly, even if upscale the price a little bit, might
Right.
be okay if there's people kind of
If
wanting to
the
step
form
down from
factor
these
is just a little
maxes.
bit smaller, and
Yeah,
to be honest, I mean, we've been on the since the Plus was introduced, I believe, with the iPhone 7, right? I've been on the larger size phone because I wanted
yeah,
more screen,
me
right?
too.
More screen, though, means that you have to stretch your hand a little farther out to be able to hold the device, and
True.
having all of that um, be sort of a one-handed sort of use case where you've got just your thumb to move things around. It's a little bit more difficult. Um, and honestly, with my arthritis, I thought, well, I like the larger screen because it helps the eyes, but regardless of what I do, I wear glasses anyway. I could have, better glasses.
You,
But I can't get a better hand,
you know
necessarily.
what's interesting? It's because even when the phones were smaller, I was never a one-hand user of any of these things.
I
I was
was back
always
in
I was always a two-handed user. So to
one-handed
me,
use
the
has
bigger
always been a
phone,
big deal for me.
yeah, yeah, for me not, because to me I need paying attention to the device. So I'm always using
Right,
both hands anyway when I
right,
work with them. So for me, it's not big difference, but
no,
I get it. I like the bigger screen for exactly the reason you just said.
right,
Especially as I get older, it's easier for me to read, it's easier for me to
right.
see. I always wanted the better, brighter screens. I mean, that all of that was important to me.
Sure,
So here we go.
sure,
But
sure,
it'll be
right,
interesting to see where this one comes down to. I'm really
right.
looking forward to it.
Yeah, so I'm interested in dropping down to like just the regular size Pro. All right.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I'm going. I want it a little bit easier to hold in the hand and not as
If
wide.
they keep the camera up and all that, I would say, yeah,
Yes.
I'm with you. But if
Yes.
the camera is always scaled back from the
On the
maxes, then I'll
smaller
probably
size,
stay on
but
the
this
maxes.
but with the 16 series it's not. And
I understand that.
I'm hoping that Apple continues that with the 17 and
Me
18
too.
and
Me
17 going
too.
forward. So we'll see how that goes.
And they're
Um
coming, folks. There's more coming
oh, they've been talking about the iPhone. They started talking about the iPhone 17 back when the iPhone
already.
15 came out.
I know, isn't that
15.
crazy?
The
Ah, the
day
rumor
that the
mill.
damn thing was released, I remember seeing, all right, because normally, the day that the device is released, or shortly after something is released, they thought, well, they kept this out of this version because they're going to put it in the next version. So look for that in the iPhone
Hmm.
next version. Well, they thought it wasn't just iPhone next, it was iPhone next plus one, and it's been.
Always. It's crazy. I don't
So
know.
not the
But we'll see
16,
what's
not the
coming.
17, and not the 17, but the 18. And oh my God.
I know. Somebody give me a sedative because it gets a
Yes,
little crazy
yes.
after a
A set a
while.
give.
My
Yes, yes.
my head just spins after a while with all
Yeah,
this.
pretty much. Pretty much.
Oh
It's
dear.
kind of. So I'm going to go ahead and I want to move us to, if it's all right with you, I
I'm
would
okay with that.
I
Who
would
else is
like
going to
to move
complain?
us to our mobile Linux segment. And this is the first time that again, first time um, with just the two of us. We're going to be missing
We are.
brother Joel for some of this, I'm certain. But
We are.
the Nintendo Switch 2 is supposed to be coming out.
Yeah.
Which I thought was interesting because, Nintendo is from a console perspective, there's more PC gaming than there is console gaming. And that's a metric and a factor in this market that's been around for a while. All right.
But Nintendo
Um,
has done very well in this market.
Nintendo has well, they've been doing very well in the console market for
Yeah,
years.
that's
All
my
right.
point.
All
Especially
right.
these portables have been huge
Yeah.
for them. This has
All
been a
right.
huge seller for
And
them.
the Switch was something that allowed you to go ahead and play on your TV set like a normal console,
Hmm.
but you could actually pull it out of the carrier and then take it with you everywhere
Hmm.
else. It kicked off a
Well, it's a whole new
huge
change.
change in PC and console gaming, because now there's a
And
lot of portable PCs that are
yeah,
portable consoles, like the
it, it
Lenovo
did.
Legion Go, the Steam Deck,
Yeah.
the
It also blurred the line between mobile gaming and
yeah,
console gaming is
it
what it
it
did.
has it has,
So
and
it's been an
this is
interesting
very, very
device
interesting. Yeah,
and a kind of a market defining device in a lot of ways. So
right.
so now they're finally going to come out, and they came out. Let's face, they came out with I'll call it an interim kind of upgrade. They went to an OLED screen,
They did,
and they released a smaller light version
and
of
they,
the device.
they did, and I will tell you, we have the OLED version, and that screen is absolutely gorgeous.
Isn't it gorgeous? It
It
really
is
is. I have one.
absolutely gorgeous.
My mother has one. My mother's a huge Legend of Zelda fan, folks. So,
Well,
I have to play and help her along every time we do these
sure,
games. So
sure,
these machines have been critical to us because my mother's been a Legend of Zelda person for a long, long, long
right.
time
And
on a lot
you
of
know what's
different
very,
consoles.
very interesting though, when you look at console gaming and PC gaming, if you know if you if you're looking at Xbox, right, you can
Yeah,
get Xbox titles not only on the console, but you can also get them on your gaming PC with the
you
Xbox
can.
app, right? If you're looking for Steam related games, you can get a Steam Deck, or you can go ahead and get, which is a specific OS that's created and run by Steam specifically for gaming machines, whether it's a desktop or a portable gaming machine. All right, and you can run Steam OS on either of those formats. So there's a mobile version as
True.
well as a desktop version, as well as your PC. And then there's Epic, and I don't know that they actually have a console that's available, but they're firmly PC gaming, and
Yeah.
they and
Well,
and
they're mobile gaming too, but
but they yeah, but it's more they're more of a PC based but
they
anyway,
are.
but anyway, the point that I'm making though is that the only place that you can get Nintendo style games without going to an illegal emulator is on their platform. All
Yeah.
right. There's no Nintendo store for your
And
PC.
they maintain quite a lockdown on that stuff.
Absolutely.
And they are known to sue at the drop of a hat.
Oh, they're
It's
vicious.
they're
They're
very
vicious.
aggressive about it and about maintaining their IP. They're very aggressive about it.
Absolutely.
So it's
So
interesting, good and
and
bad.
from a game based perspective, I would say that out of all, and I'm going to say three platforms, which is Xbox and Steam and Epic. All right, I would put Nintendo at number four. All right, from a popularity perspective.
Yeah,
If
I would disagree with that actually because, and the reason I say that is because Nintendo has I'll call it a wider audience than those
Mhm.
others, because those others tend to be the primary focus, and it's not exclusive. This isn't meant to say it's exclusive, but its primary focus is teenage boys on those other console kind of
Yeah.
things, and it's a lot of shoot 'em ups and that kind of thing. Nintendo has a much wider kind of range of applications leaning from a little bit more toward family friendly, but they have shoot 'em ups as well. So I think they have a
Hmm.
wider focus, and I think they've actually probably sold more console devices than anybody else.
Oh,
They really
I
have.
would definitely say that they but the Xbox console is way behind on from a
True enough.
sales perspective when you look
Well,
at Nintendo.
a-
But
and I got my hands on a PS5, and quite frankly, I was kind of disappointed in the limited type of titles. There was
yeah,
like only one or two types of titles, and that was what there was. And I was like, oh, this is it? That was kind of my
yeah.
reaction to the whole thing. For as expensive as it is, I was not that
And as
impressed.
hard and as difficult as it is to get the
It
PlayStation
was,
5,
yeah. I don't
you
know if it's
know,
bad now, but it was. You're right. You're
yeah.
right.
But
So I don't know. But Nintendo just seems to have. hit the sweet spot for a lot of folks in terms of what it does and what it offers and what's available. And it has a
True.
lot of very popular IP titles, the Mario titles,
Oh, the Mario
the
titles are
Legend of Zelda
absolutely
titles,
huge. Yes,
the Donkey Kong titles, all of those
absolutely.
things. They're huge. They're
Yes.
all huge IPs. And
Mm-hmm. Well, those
one would argue,
characters, those
yeah.
characters they're well known,
So
they're loved. They are,
here we
they've
are.
got a lot of interesting stuff
So
behind. So
here we
yeah,
are
go ahead.
with the second generation. I say second, really third generation device, in my opinion.
True,
They're
because
calling it
they
the
didn't have
Nintendo
that
Switch 2.
right,
The
right,
OLED
because
one
that
in the middle,
OLED
not only
was sort of a
and
bridge.
and it was a
You know?
faster processor in the OLED
It
one.
was, yeah.
So it was really kind of the second one. This one, it offers a number of interesting kind of improvements. It's a little bit bigger than its predecessor.
Yep,
It has a little bit bigger controllers with a
yep.
couple extra buttons. The
Hmm.
controllers appear to be magnetic instead of sliding and locking in like
Which
the old
which
ones.
is kind of cool,
It's a very
you
interesting
know,
choice to make. Yeah, I really
because there
think
are
it's a very
times when you
interesting
want to
choice.
they charge either on the device, but when you're playing it at home, right? I mean,
Yeah,
you really want to be able to go ahead and um play this thing in such a way, use this thing in such a way that you don't have to have the whole big console
yeah.
screen, you know, unless you're roaming and out and
Right.
about. So
So
yeah.
they've moved the charging port to the top. It still has a headset port, still has a
Mm-hmm.
good old fashioned headset port.
Yep.
Um, they've kept all of that, and they redid the way it's sort of kickstandy thing works
Yep.
a little bit. So there's so you apparently can now view it at more angles than
Yep.
before.
Yep.
I think it looks great in the online photos I've seen of it. I
Mm-hmm.
think it's a really exciting kind of upgrade for them, and I think it's going to come along with the new Mario title is coming out around the same time. I'd like to see a new
Probably
Zelda
right.
title from them, but Mario title that'll work.
You know,
So
I play Mario Kart almost, all the
yeah, I
time,
know a
every
lot
day.
of people like it a lot. I haven't really spent a lot of time with it, but the
Yeah.
Zelda titles are so deep and they're so big, they're so
Yeah.
expansive, they're
Hmm.
huge.
Yeah.
You can play for months and still
Yeah.
not hit everything you could do in the game. So those tend to what they've done more than I think the Zelda titles more than any other title has shown what the device can do. That's what it was really very good at showcasing the device. So I'm anxious to see what this Mario title does for this thing. But this is a very
Right.
nice looking device, guys.
It is.
I did we see a price point on this yet? I don't think we
I
did.
did not
I'm gonna
see a
guess it's
price,
gonna be around the same price as the current one, but
which was
maybe slightly
around
more.
what 350 to 450, something like that,
Yeah, it
somewhere in that
wasn't bad.
neighborhood. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't, insanely cheap either. But there's a lot that's happening with the Switch. There is more information on the Switch 2 software.
Yeah.
Um, and apparently there is a Nintendo Direct presentation that's scheduled for April 2nd.
Mm,
It will be followed up by a series of hands-on Nintendo Switch 2
yep.
experience events that will occur worldwide. Um, Three of those events have been announced for the US, April 4th through 6th in New York City, April 11th through 13th in LA. Dependent that, supposing that there is still an LA for it to be had in, if it isn't, that burnt crouton that it currently is, and April 25th through the 27th in Dallas. Online registration for those events is open now. It was opened as of January 17th, with the
Yep.
actual device itself due sometime in 2025, though April is probably around the time that they're going to.
Yeah, I've been hearing that, and I just did a quick check. There doesn't appear to be anybody that knows what the pricing will be. The current Switch was at 299,
Okay.
and
As of now. As of
as
now.
of now, but the idea is that it may be slightly higher than that,
Right.
adjusted for inflation and all that
Right.
kind of happy
Yeah.
stuff.
I
But the
actually
point
got
is,
mine. I got mine for free
oh,
through points
oh, very nice.
from a credit card. So it was, yeah, it was actually, I think, priced in that credit card store. I think it was actually priced at 350
Well, I mean, I have to say,
with the OLED version. The regular Switch without the OLED display was 299. This one was 350 with the
I mean, I have to say, even as
processor
a
and
as a
screen.
cranky older guy,
Yeah,
I enjoy the Switch. I like the device a lot. It's a very
yeah,
convenient device. It offers the best
yeah.
of mobile and console to me, and it's a nice device. So we'll
I
see.
would truly love to see Nintendo open up to PC gaming. Um,
They had something at one
they
point,
had
didn't
something
they?
at one point a couple of years ago, but I think that they took it down because they said that it didn't drive the sales.
Oh,
And
I
they,
gotcha.
you
It
know,
really wasn't the direction they were heading in
no,
your,
and
I think.
they didn't really put in a lot of effort
Okay,
behind it
fair
either.
enough.
So, yeah. But I would
But
love to
this
see
thing
it come
looks
back.
again, this device looks great, guys. I'm
Yeah,
going to be anxious to see it hit the
yeah.
market. We'll see how this goes. But
Right.
I have a feeling this is just going to be Nintendo plodding forward as usual.
True,
You
true.
know,
And this, honestly, the way that they've got this device set up and the way that it works and actually stuff, it really kind of reminds me a little bit of some of the equipment or peripherals that were available way back in the day. The only thing
yeah,
that's missing here is kind of like a keyboard or whatnot. And interestingly enough,
yeah.
for stuff like that that's going on, a lot of those devices, at least nowadays, are all well, most of them, a lot of them use Snapdragon processors,
Well, we're gonna talk about how these things, how these processors are all getting more powerful, and it lends itself to other kinds of things than we have
Right,
maybe thought of before, right?
right. A while back, and I want to say it was about maybe, um, I want to say that it was probably somewhere around almost 10 years ago.
Oh gosh.
There was a phone that was out there, and I think from Motorola.
Oh yeah, there was. Yeah, I know what
All
you're
right,
talking about.
that was, I mean, you could take your phone and you put it in this laptop style case, if you will. All right. And it actually turned it into an Android based tablet, right? And it was really the first sort of prototype device that you could actually have, your phone, and if you wanted to have like a true computer like experience, you plug your phone and you set your phone into this thing, it connects up, and you've got yourself a laptop. Well, nowadays, if you've got a Snapdragon processor in your phone, according to PC World, you know
Yeah.
your phone is now ready to be your
Well,
laptop.
and some folks would argue we kind of had that with Samsung DeX, and I would argue that the limitations of Samsung DeX kind of kept it from becoming bigger than it could have been.
Yeah. Right,
But now we're talking about putting this maybe in the OS. Now we have processors that are really desktop class processors. All of these things are
right,
conspiring together to say maybe it's time. Maybe this is going to
right.
happen now.
Right. And if you look at the PC World article, they also mention the Motorola Atrix 4G, right?
Yeah, that was the device, the Atrix. Yeah,
Yeah. So um
it was an interesting device in the day. I
it
remember it.
was. It was an interesting device. But the whole idea there was, so you're not carrying around a whole bunch of different devices, right? Because you've
Yep.
got your $1,000 phone, you've got your $2,000 to $3,000 laptop with you. You get mugged or robbed on the subway or on the streets of wherever it is that you are, and you're out $4,000 to $5,000.
Not to mention your data, not to mention access to everything. Yeah.
Yeah. So, um, it's interesting now that they're saying that with the latest Android devices, this concept of being able to actually integrate the two and have it actually function as a desktop computer is not all that far away.
No, I would say that's true. And again, we've had this conversation before. I think the the mobile versions of apps have gotten better. We can discuss that they're not quite where you'd like to see them be or where I'd like to see them be sometimes, but they're certainly better than they were a few years ago, and they certainly have more capability than they had a few years ago. So the question is, for just I'm on the road, I need to do a couple of things real quickly. It might be enough. And you have your data on a kind of portable format. You need to
Hmm.
hook up to a monitor just so you can see it bigger. Maybe have a mouse with you. It's a non-event, or maybe a flat, small portable keyboard with you. It's still carrying a lot less than carrying your laptop with you.
And your
So,
phone and
and
your
your phone and
tablet,
your tablet.
right?
Mhm.
And
It's
the Snapdragon 8 Elite. processor is supposed to
It's
have enough punch to offer desktop like
and
performance.
that's the chip that's in a lot of these
A lot of the phones
ARM-based
that are out
PCs.
there right now,
Well, no,
yeah.
no, not the Elite. The Elite is in the ARM-based
Oh, the
Copilot
ARM-based,
computers.
yes,
The
yes,
Elite
yes, yes,
is what they put in those devices, and now they're talking about
yes.
putting those in
Okay,
the phones. And
okay.
that's the leap you're making, as opposed to the predecessor, the 8 series and whatnot.
Well,
This is now the Elites.
right,
They're
and
they're
that
a little
right.
different.
So you've got that processor, and then a lot of
Hmm.
the graphics processors that are also
Oh,
in the
sure.
phones nowadays. I mean, you get desktop like performance on in mobile gaming, right? With some of those phones, with some of those
Well,
graphic
and this new
processors.
generation is supposed to take even more advantage of that. I would
Right,
also argue that you've seen a lot in the last couple releases of Android. You're starting to see this, desktop mode kind of in developer options
right.
show up. It doesn't quite work the way it ought to work, but it almost says, well, here's a placeholder. We're going to do something at the OS level. Something's coming at the
There's
OS
a
level.
there's a lot of I know that both the S24 Ultra that I'm currently in on the Android side and my iPhone 15 Pro Max that I'm still using on the Apple side, both of them have a gaming mode, right?
They have a
Um,
gaming
they
mode,
have a
true.
gaming mode, which means that there's an extra sub processor that's in the phone that will
Hmm.
help improve the performance and improve the graphics.
But it also prioritizes the main processor a
It
little
does.
differently.
It does.
So yeah,
So you've got something in there that's already um, taking advantage of a lot of the processing power that's in that particular processor that's in that
yeah,
device, as well as the graphics and the display that's already just absolutely fabulous. So
yeah.
it's interesting that we are back at this point. Do you really think that this is going to be something that is going to be more mainstream? Because this was back in the day,
Yeah.
back in the in the 2000s. This was really the dream, right? You had your Windows Mobile um, device, and then you had that Targus folding keyboard, right?
Yep,
And
we
then you
did.
may have a little something that may have been connected to the keyboard that acted as a mouse. It popped out of the back or the side or whatever, or something that could be hooked up.
Or even have a block mouse. People had just carried a Bluetooth
Or it didn't
mouse.
because it was a touchscreen, right? You could use
Yeah,
this is
there's
the
lots
old
of things
Steve
people
Jobs
did.
kind of, this is my mouse, right? This is
Yeah,
my
your finger,
stylus,
right.
right? Kind of thing.
He's
Um,
pointing at me, folks. He's pointing at me.
yeah, well, there's three that's pointing right back at me, so don't worry about it. I think you're
Yeah,
fine.
you go.
But the point that I'm making though is that was the dream of that whole thing where you had
It
I can
was.
go on my quick overnight business trip for this one meeting that's across the country, and all I've got to take is my PDA because when I come back to the office and I stick it in the cradle, and it'll sync back up and take all the Word and Excel things that
Well,
I've done over
and
the
and add to that,
trip
we
and
were talking about,
back and forth.
a lot of offices were going to hoteling. So
Yeah,
you always had a monitor and dock of some kind there. All you had to do,
right,
if you theoretically had the
right,
right device, you
right,
plug in and you're good to go.
right.
You don't need to have anything with you. Just
Right. So, we haven't really seen a lot of that come back um, haven't really
well,
seen that come back to the point where I'm traveling around with one device, this one big,
and
larger screen
I think
phone,
it's because up until now, a lot of it has been compromises. You've always had to
Mhm.
make some kind of compromise.
Right,
Either your performance wasn't there in your processor, so
right,
the desktop experience was limited at best,
right,
or the apps were limited. They didn't have the
right,
capabilities that you wanted, or they were again limited. I think that now they're going to start to have these desktop class processors in these
right.
devices. Perhaps we'll see some, better implementation at the OS level, better implementation at the app level.
Hmm.
Maybe. That's my hope, and I think so. I think that's why the hope is kind of renewed for everybody, because the capabilities are now there again finally.
Sure. Do you think that Android 16 is gonna help with any of this?
I've been wondering because in the last couple Android releases, again, I've seen the desktop mode show up in developer mode,
Right,
and it's been limited or not working very well at all. But it seems to be something they're trying to roll into the OS. So that's why I wonder if we're going to get there, and that's just a placeholder, and they're going to release some kind of desktop mode in
right.
some near release of it. I wonder. I
Right.
haven't seen anything to say that for sure yet. The other thing that's happening is not only are we getting these better processors in there,
Right.
we're also getting more of these devices are supporting external monitors. They didn't used to support that. That's the other big
Very,
change.
very true. I mean, really, with the advent of some of the desktop style
Hmm.
processes that you're seeing in the iPad Pro, all
Yeah,
right, it's more on the Apple side than I think
and,
on the Android side. Like you said, there was
yeah,
Samsung Dex, and there was a whole move from an Android perspective on the Samsung side of it to actually push this. But the Android 16 betas are supposed to already be somewhere in the mix. Whether it's because the first beta one was supposed to be scheduled to start in January on Pixel devices, right?
yeah.
All right, and then it's set to go. And it's supposed to arrive in Q2, right, instead of Q3. All right,
That's what we're hearing is that that's coming along a little earlier this time around.
right, right. So um, it's interesting in that, like I said,
Well,
the first beta quality release OTA updates to early adopters who enroll in the beta program will show up sometime in January, and then beta 2 will be an incremental quality release.
of
Beta
course.
3 is going to be the first platform stability milestone, which includes final APIs and behaviors. Google Play Store publishing also opens, and then beta 4 near the final builds for final testing. Beta 4 is supposed to come in April, with Google possibly releasing more builds before the final release.
Well,
So
and I think it's important to point out, as these things have rolled along, that again, the hardware has certainly improved
yeah,
as we go along here,
yeah,
and Google has seemed to make some commitment to getting these things out sooner rather than later in their
right.
Pixel devices, at
Yep.
least. So, yeah, I mean, it's not just Samsung doing DeX anymore. I think
No.
these are things are coming, and I think that these devices are coming. The newest Android 16 things seem to be well
Hmm.
on their way. So, we're in for some interesting months here, guys. That's what I'm thinking.
We are there's a lot of interesting stuff that's coming down the pike, if you will. And speaking of the
Speaking of
pike,
down the pike, what's
speaking
up
of
with the
down
pike?
well, Android Auto, right?
Oh, yes.
Android Auto, according at least to 9 to 5 Google, less and less drivers are actually using Android
Yeah,
Auto,
I found that
but
I found that to be
apparently the
interesting.
YouTube music thing is a hit in the car, which
Yeah,
I don't understand.
I'm not sure what happened there. And the only thing I could think of, I was thinking about this as we sort of talked about a little bit earlier. And my thought was maybe what's happening is I know that at least with, like, for example, General Motors, their newer internal infotainment systems are Google based. So you log into your Google account using that directly. So those people
Not
probably
Android,
don't
not
need
Android, but
but they probably don't need it because they can download apps and install apps
sure,
directly to the device. So maybe they don't need Android Auto, I guess is where I'm going with it.
sure.
So, or maybe they don't care as much about it. I'm not saying they don't need it at all or don't want it at all,
Well,
but
because they
um,
have that infotainment system from
and
GM
it's
that's
already a Google based system, so they can already
right.
get to their Google based stuff.
So they can get to their apps and get their streaming
Now
when
that
they want
doesn't
their
help the Apple
streaming.
users at all,
No, it
but
doesn't.
but the point, and I still think it's the wrong move for everybody to make, but the point I'm getting at is maybe that's leading toward it a little bit. I don't know. I don't know. That's one of the things that occurred to me.
It has to be based somehow on Android, but this is truly the case where it's exactly the same, except that it's completely different. Seriously.
Yeah, I think that's true. I mean it is the same, but it's not the same.
Right.
You know, the only thing
Um,
I think it's basically Android that Google has given more control over to the automakers
true.
themselves directly for you rather than holding onto the control themselves. So they've got some kind of deals, I'm sure, to make it a thing.
Sure.
That's fine.
I just don't understand. Well, this whole driving in face, this whole I mean it goes back, really, really to the Nexus
It
1.
does.
All right. When
That's
they
what's the
the
Nexus one? Yeah, I guess it was.
Yeah. They had a a mount that you could stick in the car,
Yeah.
and so that you're not actually dinking with the device. It gave you
Yeah.
the first limited view of the actual OS, so that you wouldn't be distracted while you were
Yeah.
driving, and you could get to your music, your navigation, and your
True.
communications if you needed it. It really didn't allow you to read the text messages while you were driving either. So as I recall, all right, because I was big into the Nexus One at the time. So um, it's interesting that it's actually gone this route. There needs to be something from an Android perspective. All right, CarPlay is CarPlay, and I believe it is the gold standard by which a lot of this is
Well,
being
and we all
measured.
know we talked about this in past shows that
Sure, we have.
Android Auto used to be kind of clunky,
Yep,
and it became more and more and more like CarPlay.
CarPlay. Mm-hmm.
So somebody said to me the other day, "Oh, I was running Google. Google was on the screen. They said, "Oh, that looks like CarPlay."
Right,
Yeah, it does,
it
kids. It
does,
really does.
and that was kind of done on purpose
It was done on purpose because that's what was succeeding
because that's
in the
what was
market.
succeeding. Yes, and now
So
maybe not so much. You know,
maybe we'll see.
from a GM perspective, they are one of the bigger
So
car manufacturers in the
yeah,
states.
so they're
So
saying so they're saying the report was basically saying the Android Auto is used by 7% fewer drivers year after year, while CarPlay grew 2%,
right,
which is very interesting in the current market that that's the case. I'm a little surprised
that
that
is
that's the
true.
case, but because I would have expected CarPlay to shrink if it was what I was just saying as the reason. But no, CarPlay is going up,
It's
and
true.
and I don't know. I guess we'll see what it is. Maybe they're finding better ways
Well,
to.
I will say that I still think that CarPlay is the auto interface to beat.
I think
Um,
so.
I don't know how well this new GM thing is going to go, but I think it's gonna if depending on how it works with your Android phone, it may be a
Uh,
huge success. Um,
yeah.
Depending on how it works with your Apple phone, it's either going to be something that is okay, or it's going to be a huge turd. All right.
Well, I think I
So, because
I
they
have
aren't going to offer CarPlay in
so
GM cars anymore. They
and
aren't.
GM has doubled down on this a couple times already on it,
Yep.
and I will tell you that the dealers are unhappy with it. The users have expressed a lot of
Right.
unhappiness with this
Right.
notion, and
Right.
I will tell you I've just been going through the process of talking about possibly trading my car. I had a
Hmm.
conversation with the dealer and made it very clear that a particular model was unacceptable to me because it no longer supported Apple CarPlay. And I
Right.
want and I said, feel free to pass that message back up. And
Yep.
I'm sure I'm not the only one saying that to
Oh,
them.
absolutely.
So they're hearing
Absolutely.
it. They're
Because
hearing it. He told me they'd heard it before, and they're hearing more people saying that.
yeah, if it doesn't have Apple CarPlay right now, all of every member of my family, and when I say my family, I not only do I mean my wife and my boys and I, but also my daughter who has who's married on her own with her husband and
They
their
all
three
have everything
kids.
connected. It.
Everybody,
Yep.
the only other person besides um my daughter and my son-in-law and her family that has a phone is our 13-year-old granddaughter, all right, who's very much into travel sports, and um we had an extra iPhone laying around. It's not like we bought her a phone, all right.
I.
So
I.
she got a
mhm.
Gazenta phone
Ah.
that works very well for her. She's in an XR.
Well, I will say, I've been both Android and Apple user for a long, long, long time.
Yep,
I would
so have
argue that
I.
I'm primarily Apple more than Android,
So
but
am
both.
I.
But I am both, and I have to laugh because I talk to some of my, I have friends overseas that I talk
Yep.
to all the time,
Yep.
and one time all of a sudden they were texting, and it was a blue bubble that popped up on my screen. I said, "What are you?" I said, "Yeah, are you on an iPhone?" They said, "Yes." I said, "Really?" I
Since
said, "Why
when?
did you go to an iPhone?"
Yeah.
And they said, "Because you always seemed very happy with yours."
There you
I said,
go.
"Well, I've never tried to tell you to get one." They said, "No, but you're happy with yours." Well, I think
Hmm.
this is true. This goes to extend to CarPlay and why people continue to use it, why it's growing,
Yeah.
and all these other things. I think it's all related. If
Oh,
people are happy with
absolutely.
something, they're going to stay with it. And we've all said
Absolutely.
this before. If all of a sudden Google comes up with something massively better, we would jump in a heartbeat. And
I
if
think we
Apple
would all
comes with
be
something,
interested to try it. I think we would all be interested to
well,
try
yeah,
it. And if Google were to come
true.
up with something better than Android or something different that
Well,
dotted all
something
the I's and
compelling,
crossed all
right?
the T's,
Something
right?
compelling.
Yeah. We'd
We're
chase
always
after it.
we're always looking for the next compelling thing. I mean,
Oh,
most of us
absolutely.
started, with the different platforms, like Windows Phone, well, even Windows Mobile before
Windows
Windows Phone,
or even Pocket PC. You want to
Pocket
go
PC. We
really
were
get
all
back
back
to
in
was
that,
Windows CE.
and
You know?
and before that we were on Palms, and
Yep.
before that we were on, we all did this thing, whatever compellingly
Yep.
works the best for us next. So yeah, I'd like to see them succeed. I'd like to see them all, do well. So I hope Android Auto starts to pick up a little better, because I think it was a good solution for the Android platform.
Yep.
Uh, Not sure what the drop is, but why the drop is, but okay. To me, it works like CarPlay. So as far as I'm concerned, you fixed the things I didn't like about it,
Yep.
you know? So
There you
I don't
go.
understand what the delay is, but
Right.
okay.
So
So there
that's
we
cool.
go.
Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to move us to our Windows segment, but I'm going to do that right after this brief. Hi. Hi. This is Christopher Spera from iTechGear.org. I wanted to talk with you today about becoming a contributing donor to the site. iTechGear.org has been around for almost 15 years. In fact, our anniversary is just around the corner on January 10th, 2025. 15 years. Where has the time gone? I've never really asked for any kind of donations for the site. It's always been about me providing value to you, a site visitor or podcast listener. The iTech Gear Weekly is now in its fourth year of production, and Chris G, Joel, and Dr. Mr. Larry McJunkin and I are having a really great time providing you with some of the best free tech talk available from time-tested original internet writers, testers, site founders, and professional writers and editors on the internet. I truly believe that our crew has some of the best and most qualified pundits and commentators on the internet today. And we're not hobbled by any kind of sponsorship or affiliated relationship or other time bought posts. It all comes from the heart. Unfortunately, times are kind of tough. And since the COVID-19 pandemic of 2020 to 2023, yes, almost 3 full years, times have become increasingly difficult for small independent sites like iTechGear.org to stay afloat. I normally do this with a portion of the salary I make from the day job, but with the IT market so tight right now, it's really difficult sometimes for many to make normal household ends meet, let alone fund a site like iTechGear that might decide to bring in a buck or two. It ain't easy. If you find any of our content on iTechGear or from ITGW to be of any value at all, I would seriously appreciate you donating as little as just $1 to the cause. While we do have a Patreon site, it's hard to keep one website up, let alone two. And since it's really only me doing the work, our Patreon site hasn't really helped us at all. If you can make a donation to the site or to the show of any amount, I'd be forever grateful. All donations will go to site maintenance, hosting, podcast hosting, and everything iTech Gear related. Donations can be made to my PayPal account at chris@itechgear.org. Make a donation. We'll thank you immediately on the next ITGW episode and voice our gratitude. I want to thank you. We appreciate your consideration, time, and attention. Now let's get back to the latest iTech Gear Weekly episode. And welcome back to the iTech Gear Weekly episode number 118. We're okay because the band's still playing.
Well, you sounded like the gears are grinding a little bit there.
Hey, a little gravel never hurts anybody,
Especially at our age. There you go.
Hey, there you go. Anyway, so yeah, I want to go ahead and I want to move us to our Windows segment. And hey, Chris, could you spin the big wheel for us? Because it's time now for the Microsoft Mistake-a-thon.
And what do we have first on the big wheel?
Oh, the first thing on the big wheel. All right, no whammies. Is Copilot rebranding. This is, I mean,
oh gosh. Okay.
I mean, so now they're calling it Microsoft 365 Copilot. Okay.
So let's step back a little.
Yeah.
What was Microsoft Office forever and ever and ever got rebranded as Microsoft 365.
Because it's something that you use every day of the year, Chris.
Is that what it was?
I think so.
I thought it was just 365 times that I cursed it this year.
Well, there is that.
Okay.
That happens multiple
times. So now, because we're rolling some of these Copilot features into it, we're going to rebrand it again.
And we're going to tie it to Office. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to move the last story up just a little bit to go in with this because we're rebranding Copilot. We're going to charge, and because it is an integral part of Microsoft 365.
It is.
All right. The price is going up for the first time in 12 years. Okay.
But why is it going up, Chris?
But wait, there's more.
Why is it going up, Chris? Tell me why it's going up.
Oh, because we're including Copilot.
Well, there you go.
All right. And to be very, very honest, I didn't like Clippy. Okay. You didn't like Clippy. There's a whole bunch of people out there who grabbed their cooling buckets of tar, and they grabbed all the feathers out of the feather.
I know.
And the chicken who happened to be just pecking the ground behind.
I was one of them.
And they lit the torches, and
But I did like the little dog and little cat assistants. Well, they were at least
there was a cute little cat. Again, there was also a blue, not orange, blue Bill the cat.
There was,
and I truly believe that Berkeley Breathed was behind that because
those made me smile. Those made me smile. Clippy did not. Clippy just pissed me off.
Clippy was just annoying. All right. The dolphin, the cute little kitty cat, and Earl the cat.
Earl, I remember Earl.
Right. The blue Bill the cat wannabe.
So now here we are.
We're
going to throw
Copilot.
All
made you smile and laugh. No.
We're throwing Copilot in. The thing that nobody really seems to want, by the way.
Nobody seems to want this.
Because they can't sell PCs based around this name, apparently, either.
Right. No.
But we're gonna rebrand using this name that is not a successful name at the moment, kids. Let me make that clear. And we're gonna go ahead and rebrand it using this name. I see. And this is a good idea. How?
Right. Well,
and we're going to charge you more for it, for the privilege.
Yeah, so Microsoft is so desperate to push its Chat GPT container, Microsoft Copilot, that has attached it to one of its only popular consumer products left, like some kind of vestigial lamb.
Or limb, gosh, here we go.
Vestigial lamb. All right, with the update, apps like Word, Excel will gain more Copilot integration, quote unquote. Although so far the results aren't exactly great. For example, the ability for Copilot to actually interact with your documents in Excel is limited, and it's very limited. All right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you ask it to remove mentions of a date range, right, that you mistakenly copied and pasted, in more than one cell, all right, or in more than one workbook, right?
Okay.
It basically just kind of returns with a guide on how to press delete to remove data from cells. Here's what I found on the web about deleting content from your cells.
Oh, yeah, very helpful.
It did a Siri, right? It did a Siri on this whole thing. So,
and how much are they charging us for this privilege?
I believe.
Isn't it like $3 a month or something more?
Something like that. I mean, it's somewhere between. Depending on the size of the prescription that you have.
Prescription?
Yeah. All right. It could be anywhere between $3 to $5 from what I understand. So per user or whatever, or however you've got it done.
Okay, so here we go.
I don't, I don't get it. First of all, and first and foremost, the whole rebranding thing for Copilot. I mean, it's been really nothing but annoying. Microsoft has been shoving this down our throats, sticking this Copilot thing in our face.
Yeah, they
All
have.
right, since they announced their support and financial interest and stake in ChatGPT with OpenAI, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, they've been pushing this at us, trying to make us bite on and love it. It's just, why don't you love me? Why
So,
don't you love me? Because you're a pain in the ass. Take a hint from Clippy. You did this
so
before.
now they have a rebrand that nobody cares about, and they're
Right.
raising the price to try to push this down our throat even more.
Even more.
So
All
tell
right.
me, what's in the trifecta? What's
Well,
in the trifecta?
the trifecta apparently is that if Bill Gates was asked in a recent interview, what was their biggest mistake or biggest what his one of his greatest regrets was, and that it probably is that MS isn't what Android is. Microsoft is not what Android is. And the only thing that I've got to say is,
Hmm.
well, if he had anybody else other than Ballmer in charge of it during this time frame, we probably would still have some kind of a Microsoft-based mobile application or OS. All right.
Yeah, yeah.
Ballmer
He
didn't
really
understand. Microsoft mobile devices didn't stick around and didn't make it because Ballmer didn't understand mobile. From my guess is that he still doesn't
no,
understand
and
how
they
mobile is
needed
supposed
to
to work.
stick with it for a while, and they didn't do that.
No,
They
they needed to see
really
it through. They
barely.
needed to see it through. They were a huge, huge success. They
And
drove Palm out of business.
and
All right.
let's be clear. We I remember back in the day
Mm-hmm.
through the channels that we had available to us
Yep.
back then. I remember we were very vocal about Microsoft. All you have to do is these one or two things, and you're going to be an even bigger success. And they
Yes.
didn't do any of those things. And guess what?
No, because
They
no, because
failed.
their arrogance prevented it.
Yeah,
That's
they
why.
weren't
They're
listening to
arrogant. We
anything
don't
users.
need you. You're not Microsoft. You're not us. You don't know what you're talking
And
about.
I should
No,
point
I
out
just
it
use
isn't
these devices
specifically.
every day of my life.
Yeah,
All right. They're
and it
integrated into
isn't
everything that I do.
specifically. It wasn't specifically about us. All of the user base was saying the same thing.
They
This
were.
is what we need out of you. This is what we need you to do, and this is what you're
Hint,
not doing for
hint,
us.
hint. And it was, yeah. And so much so that cry was so loud. It came from a lot of users that didn't know a damn thing about mobile, but they just wanted their mobile devices to do this. All right.
Yeah, it really wasn't that complicated,
No,
you know.
it
It's
wasn't.
so because they
You
had a
know,
lot of the pieces right. They really did.
they
And
did
so now
at the
here we
time
are.
that they did. I mean, they also drove black. They killed
And
Palm.
they
They
killed
killed
Palm,
BlackBerry. All right.
and they
Exchange killed BlackBerry. All right.
the whole WebOS thing, except for some relegation to TV sets that it
Right.
has now. You
They
know,
drove those three huge players out of the market,
they
out of
did.
business and or out of the market.
And let's not forget the fact they
And then they
broke
blew
Nokia while
it.
they broke Nokia while they were doing it.
Yes.
But
That I think is that one big thing. That event, I think, is probably what turned a lot of folks off
I think
from
so
a
too.
Microsoft mobile device perspective. How could you, Nokia is,
It's Nokia. How did you do that?
how did you screw that up?
How did you take number one and break it?
Yes.
Basically.
And not only did you break it, all right, but you set it on fire, swept off the ashes,
Yeah.
doused it with gasoline, and then burned it again.
It was amazing how many mistakes. And what bothers me is, to me, this is just some of the most obvious first rungs in a lot of bad moves, PR wise,
Mhm.
hardware choices that they've made, things that they've discontinued that they shouldn't have discontinued, on and on. It seems like every few months we're reporting on something else
Yeah.
that they are not getting right. And all they would have to do is listen a little bit. And they seem to fail to do that on a regular basis. I
They
don't
a
understand.
lot, and I don't understand why Microsoft won't listen to the voice of the customer. I
Well, and they
really
had
just
a
don't
user
understand it.
console and things like that, and they didn't listen to them either.
And and they have even still, they still have MVPs who are supposed to provide them with this
Well, clearly
kind
it's
of
not working.
feedback. No, because they take it, it only goes so high and it stops. There's a mid-tier ceiling there somewhere where that message gets completely muffled and lost. All right. Because the
Uh,
next step up isn't listening. And because the next step up isn't listening, it prevents it from getting all the way up to the top where Gates was. And he said at one point, um,
hmm.
shortly around the launch of the first iPhone in 2007. In the software world, and this is Bill Gates, right? In particular for platforms, there are these winner take all markets. So, the greatest mistake ever is whatever mismanagement I engaged in that caused Microsoft not to be what Android is, meaning Android is the standard non-Apple phone form platform. It really is a winner take all. If you're there with half as many apps or 90% as many apps, you're on your way to complete doom. All right. There's room for exactly one non-Apple competing operating complete non there's room for exactly one non-Apple operating system. And what's that worth? 400 billion that would
Yeah.
be transferred from company G to
And here
company M.
and
You
here's the thing, whether or not you're an Apple lover or an Apple hater, it doesn't
Yep,
really matter. They defined the market and
they
they
did.
defined what it was going to be
They did.
at that
Well,
point. At
well,
that
well,
point, they
they
defined it.
I would say they redefined it because at
That's
that
fair. No, that's fair.
they
There was a market.
redefined the market because what was
Yeah,
going on with Windows Mobile was, I mean, again, they took out BlackBerry, they
they
took out
did.
Palm, okay,
Yep.
to really capture the number one
And
spot in the mobile market
and quite
in
honestly,
2007, 8, and 9. All right. And when the iPhone came on the market, the original iPhone with, without its web store, without the app store, and without the ability to have any apps, Apple soon realized, hey, no apps, no
it's
mojo.
not going to work.
It's not
And
going to work.
let me add to this. What Apple brought to the table at the time was a gorgeous screen for the
Hmm.
day, and this whole touch centric interface, which nobody
Hmm.
had really been doing. Everybody had been assuming you needed a pen or pencil to go with it. So Microsoft followed up with Windows Mobile 7 and 8, which both had a very touch centric interface
They
and a
did.
really smart touch centric interface. By the way, it was very smart, and
Yes.
they had apps. Not enough, but they had apps. They were
Well,
starting to develop a market for that. So they understood
right.
the point is they started with that, is what I'm
Right.
getting
But
at.
at the same time, Apple realized that their platform didn't have any. So
Yeah,
they went around and they said, all right, we have to create an app platform. We have to make it easy for the users to install, and we have to make it easy for developers to jump on so
we
that
do.
they create enough apps to keep the users interested and captured in the platform. All right. And Microsoft decided that they didn't need to do this. All right. And
Well, and I
Ballmer
remember us all
eventually just,
complaining, help
well,
apps, you got to help apps happen.
yep.
We
Well,
all
the
said it.
problem, again, the problem was at the time that while Gates was the chairman of the board, Ballmer was the CEO, and Ballmer didn't get mobile. He didn't
No,
understand that you had to have
at
you
all.
had to have a store and a way of keeping um, users engaged with applications, and games and whatever else that would bring them, to the
Yeah,
next Microsoft phone or OS when it came out. And he rode a little bit too long on the Pocket PC train, all
he
right,
did.
and missed the stop.
Well,
Right?
here we are. And here we
And
are
here we
many years
are,
later, and they're out
completely
of the business.
screwed, completely screwed without. I mean, there isn't a third platform, and
There's no way for them to really jump
and
into
there's
it now.
no. There is a huge duopoly. All right,
Hmm.
there's a huge duopoly between iOS and Android.
And
All
there's a
right,
lot of us that would like to see that third platform back.
I would love to
But it's
see.
almost impossible for them to do it. But I would love to see it.
I would love to see that third platform back. I really would love to see it, and I would like to jump on again.
It was such a totally different way of doing things for folks who never got a chance to try it. It really was a different way of doing things, and a very interesting paradigm. It worked. It worked pretty well within its
It
own
it
context.
it
It
did.
really
It
did.
did. At the time, it did. All right. After the iPhone, however, because of the lack of resources that went into um the platform and the incentives for the developers to either port or develop their own native apps, the platform just withered and died. And it didn't matter at that point what Microsoft did. They had missed the train.
So, so this is
So,
today. This is today's trifecta of the Microsoft Mistakeathon.
yeah. Thank you for watching.
Thank you for watching. Oh my gosh,
Oh,
I
so
feel like Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom. It's
yes.
oh
While I sit
goodness.
here in the safety of my
Hmm.
office, Jim's going to go
Ah,
out and circumcise a wild water buffalo.
it kind of felt like that. Watching Microsoft work kind of feels like that.
Yes.
Um,
And
oh dear. But
that wonderful parody from Robin Williams was absolutely dead on.
it was dead on. But here we are, many years later. Microsoft is still doing the same nonsense. We
They
talk about them
are.
almost every other week, it seems like.
Yep.
We talk about the latest dumb thing that they've
That
done.
they do, and that that and the full screen ads for Windows
The
10 users to get off of 10 and get onto
I think that
11.
the larger thing that's interesting when you talk about Microsoft, sort of a final note here is that, they've been making these mistakes for years, and I think that's kind of the point we've been making here.
Yep.
Um, and they've gotten away with it for years and years. But I think it's funny because we're starting to see the cracks in it. We're starting
Mhm.
to see
We
Windows
are.
11 isn't people aren't liking it. They're not going there the way they went with Windows 10 or Windows
Mhm.
7. And
Very true.
you're starting to see some very significant cracks in the armor, as it were. And I don't know what that means for Microsoft down the road. You've seen Copilot as a branding item isn't selling the way they want it to. And it has nothing to do with them being ARM based because now they put the Copilot branding on uh, other non
On
ARM based
Copilot
PCs.
PCs, right?
The
ARM-based
branding, right?
PCs.
The
Yeah.
branding on that. And they're putting the branding on everything. And it isn't increasing sales for them anywhere. And that's
Well,
the interesting thing.
I'm hoping, and I'm probably wrong here. All right. But I'm hoping that Microsoft sees the error of their ways and doesn't stubbornly stick with it.
I would agree, but we've been saying
All
that for
right.
a long, long
Well,
time now.
we've been seeing it since Ballmer decided he wasn't going to invest in Pocket PC. It goes back that far. It
Well, and
truly
then,
does.
but keep in mind, and they basically did it again in the Surface Duo. They could have turned that into something. They were heading in the right path.
They
They they
were.
had they had some mistakes, but they were heading in the right path, and then they abandoned it. But just before they could get to the finish line, they abandoned it.
They dropped out of the race.
They
And
dropped
I,
out of the race, which is
and I
what they
don't
did again.
understand.
And
They
so,
did it again. Yes.
yeah, so I
Oops,
don't
sorry,
understand that.
Brittany. Did it again. Yeah.
I don't understand their approach to things. I think the people making it feels like decision by committee and bad decision by committee more than not. But
Well, it also seems like some of those decisions are being made by people who don't understand mobile.
but
They're technology people. What the hell, kids? I
but
mean, don't
they've
tell me
had
that
the
you don't
re
understand the technology.
but what they've had in their pocket is enough resources to take these hits. The problem is at some point that becomes a dead end road. You can't do that forever. And so I'm
No,
going to be curious to see where they end up with
I
this.
understand what you're saying, and I happen to agree with you, which is strange.
Yeah, you really
But
shouldn't do that.
but um, honestly, I just I don't understand why they're doing why they did what they did and why they're doing what they're
And they're
doing. It
still
seems
doing
like
it.
they're
Yeah.
making the same mistake over and over. It's the same mistake. We go so far, okay, you guys aren't getting it. I'm going to take my technology and go home.
Right.
Oh,
Just when they're starting to sort of maybe catch on is when
yes.
they abandon it. And I don't understand that thinking unless they're looking for a tax write-off. I don't get it. You
And
know,
honestly, I mean, you're talking now about what do they have left? I mean, seriously, they've got Office and they've got Windows, and
and they're
that's
screwing
really
up
about,
Office now,
and they're
right?
screwing it up. They're screwing up
They're
the
really
platform,
screwing
and
up
they're
Office.
screwing up the one thing that is bringing them in some serious money,
Well,
which is
they
awesome.
are getting money off the Azure platform right now, but people would argue that that isn't what it should be yet either. And I don't want to go down that path because that's
No,
another whole
it's a
rabbit
completely
hole.
different thing.
But
So
but they're having some challenges in that platform as well. And they've tried to force other things to tie to it to make you have to use it more
yes,
to justify it. Um,
which
Windows
doesn't make any
backup and
sense to me,
OneDrive.
but
Um,
how they
but
do
here we
what they do
go.
has never made sense to me,
But here
honest
we
to God.
go. Here we go.
So, well, all
All
right,
right, guys.
kids.
That's it.
Yes, that's it. And because it's only the two of us this week, I wanted it. We're changing the format just a little bit. We're not going to do a tip this week, and we're not going to do a pick this week. That is effectively the show. So this has been the iTechGear Weekly, episode number 118. We're okay because the band's still playing. Recorded live Sunday, January
And we are.
19th, 2025, live from iTechGear Central. For Mr. Chris Gavula and for the absent brother Joe McLaughlin and Dr. Mr. Larry McJunkin.
We miss you
Hey,
guys.
we do. And I want to say, we'll see you next time.